and we don't have to go
I'm going to be honest, gentlemen. I'm going to cut out a lot of the Suicide Squad because we went on for about 45 minutes of that.
No reason.
That's fair.
Just don't cut out any of the related actor performance, not like dialogue. Before your question is, why did you share that if we weren't allowed to look at it?
Because I'm not the smartest human being on the planet.
Listen,
Deion,
man,
and sometimes
he's got like 4 brain cells and 3 of them are going on
separate
right
Google Docs.
Okay, I was just curious because I didn't look.
Jesus. Yeah, I thought about it too. I just hoped you wouldn't mention it.
I was just curious because I'm just like, why did you title this? Do not look. You don't know. Listen, Matt made the best decision all day.
Matt knows you well, apparently.
I was so mad when he typed that.
I
I was like, are you serious? I checked. I couldn't access it. I was mad.
I knew.
So,
Hey guys, Future Rhuminus here. Just want to let you know that this episode covers some topics that may be triggering or upsetting for some people. We discuss some topics that have sexual assault, gore, body mutilation, all that kind of stuff, because we discuss some movies that have that content in it. We don't go into too much particular detail about it. We try to stay away from it. We kind of just skirt around it. However, we do mention it. We do say some words that may be triggering or upsetting for people because we do mention the content that's in these movies. When we start talking about Clockwork Orange, that is your cue that you might want to skip ahead if that's what you want to do. We talk about Clockwork Orange, Gerald's Game, and Jason X, all of which have these kind of themes and unfortunate topics in them. Welcome to All Topics No Pizza, where we start with a basic idea for conversation, then derail ourselves with new topics until we are light years away. I am Matt, also known as Rhuminus.
I'm Deion, technically the one and only.
And I'm Dirk Mandrill of Boys and Buns and Paradise Corporate. And I've got some questions for you two employees. Why are you not in your corporate acceptable mankinis for today?
Is it too late to call out?
Oh, it's too late, bitch.
I hate all of this.
I
Don't
suddenly
worry.
have COVID.
I'm gonna make you hate your
I have
life a
all the
lot
varieties.
more.
I have Delta and Lambda.
All right, no, I'm Nick Parks. I'm mad. I got some shit to talk about, and that's why I'm here today. I'm not
Start
even...
spitting it, son.
So are we
Dion, beat.
Are we
Dion,
Yeah.
beat. Now, start it.
That,
All right.
that felt racist a little bit.
Oh, just because you're black, right?
And you asked,
because I'm black.
yeah, and you asked,
you to
yeah,
beatbox.
exactly. It felt a little targeted. Are we doxing you? Are we telling you gonna tell me where you work, or are we gonna
I'll
be
tell you
anonymous?
who we are doxing. I'll tell you who we're doxing.
Okay.
We'll call them Brienne.
Wait. So
I got a new manager at work today.
no,
Well,
you're
I had a new
lying.
manager at work like 2 weeks ago.
Are you serious?
No. I mean, yes, but no. I'm never serious, Deion.
Okay. I have a
Yes,
question.
I'm serious. I got a new manager.
Okay, I have a question. Wait, let me figure out how to ask this. Did your old manager,
Jack?
Flacky,
No.
quit?
Jack, no.
Jack? Jackie didn't quit?
Jack didn't quit.
Okay.
He
Guys, you're terrible with the
he's
doxing.
still manager, but we got a new district manager on the name. Brienne.
Oh, yay.
And let me tell you,
District manager,
Brienne,
those are always fun. I love those.
Brienne, you fucking suck.
I didn't like the previous
I will
district
come
manager.
to your house and burn it fucking down. Now here's the thing.
Now, Nick, I want to stop you. We are not anywhere near the point where we can quit our jobs yet. So maybe before you burn the bridge, you think about what you're about to say.
So to be fair, though,
So far, we are 3 stooges on a microphone
Burn
talking to an abyss.
it down.
to be fair, what you just said is also justification for him going all in. We are the 3 Stooges
Okay.
on a microphone. Who's listening? It'll be
Yeah,
like
who am I?
6 or 7 years before this rando finds out what he said about her or him.
Hey, wait a
very
second.
true.
That's me they're talking about.
Oh,
I'm
definitely.
going to fire him.
No, the likelihood that she ever hears this is slim to none, considering I don't even think she knows I exist at this point. But that's besides the point. She has been affecting everybody at my job, and I am sick of it. I'm sick of the narcissistic bullshit. I'm sick of the just dismissive attitude. I'm sick of all of the little nitpicky things that they just decide, hey, man, why don't I make somebody cry about this today? This is my problem.
Hey, man.
Wait.
First time in retail?
Management positions draw narcissists to them. They are literally a breeding ground for narcissists, sociopaths, and just selfish pricks.
Well, you know, the famous saying is that those who are best fit to lead don't do it because they don't want that power.
All right. I mean, it's ridiculous. Actually, I have a study.
I have a prepared statement.
I have a study, that says 43% of people leave their jobs because of bad bosses.
Can I pause real quick?
Deion,
this is exactly the same way we started the last episode.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm doing a better job.
It's a
Don't worry
2-4.
about
Oh, okay. All right.
Hey.
We'll just call it part
man.
2 or something. I don't know.
Hey.
Well, no, because, I've always been here, but I didn't talk very much in the last episode, like at all. And I want to get my 2 cents in on our little subject because I'm kind of sick of this shit.
Yeah.
I have always had a dislike for people who find things like management and clerical work appealing. And
Okay.
I know clerical work is not the same as management. Clerical work tends to be more paper and money wise. But let me tell you, having a life filled with clerical people and not the bless you, give you a healing sign, cast a few magic missiles cleric either.
I will say,
can tell
though,
you
because we
also
did used to work together, the only person who has ever made me feel good about being a retail manager is good old Jack. They were, and I talked to them before. Yeah, I think you talked to them too. Told me that this is what they wanted from their life. They wanted to be a retail manager and eventually a district manager. And I'm like, I didn't say this. So I wanted to. That is so sad. That's what your career goals are, and that's where you want to cap out. But also, I mean, you're good at it. You like it. It's controllable. You have that. Clearly you have clarity about what your capabilities are, and you're not bad at your job, really. One of the few managers I've had that I was like, you're not so bad.
So here's one of the fears, and it applies to Jack in this way, that I have based on the actions of this new individual. My mind can only see an individual who didn't like our store to begin with. For those that don't know, which is almost everybody,
so you feel it's very personal.
I am currently employed at a very well-known brand of convenience stores with pharmacies attached to them. And that's all I'll say on that.
That's ambiguous enough, I guess.
Technically, they're actually regional, which is kind of cool. A couple of them are national, but most of them are regional.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
So we get this new district leader, and we're like, oh, better prepare. He comes in. Sorry, she comes in. I'm a little toasted. She comes in, and she is instantly unbearable. She is calling our hardest workers incompetent. She is literally just telling people, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this. She's walking into the store literally 5 seconds and just complaining about everything.
So, Nick, my first question, did this person, Miss Brienne, ever actually work as a retail grunt
so
for
this
this company?
is the thing. I'm not sure. I'm going to assume it's possible. However, based on the chats I've had with individuals in the pharmacy, I know for a fact she has no interaction with pharmacy in her past. And that's bad. Every manager for a retail / pharmacy place should have experience in both. And that was the benefit of our last DM. So here's a couple things. Here's a few things I've learned about Brienne in passing conversations. Brienne knows nothing about the pharmacy. That's fair. Brienne thinks the last DM was incompetent.
Wow.
The last DM...
Ooh. Some bold words.
Can I say
based
something?
on
The
what I've
last
heard from you two.
DM was told not to contact any stores she previously managed.
Ooh.
Can I say
So-
something real quick?
Sure.
Because Parks and I used to work together, so that's fine. That's cool. The last DM, if I remember correctly, I don't actually remember that person's name, so I'm just gonna go with
Corey.
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 Corey, yeah, okay, yeah, Corey. Corey was a everyman, effectively. Like, they didn't know what they wanted to do, so this person was a manager. I think they were technically a certified pharmacist, and also had spent time in the military, and they weren't unranked. I don't remember what rank they made it to before they decided to go full retail, but they were not incompetent. Annoying? Sure. Stubborn? Definitely. Incompetent? Certainly
so
not.
a manager.
Yeah.
But also not rude.
And also not rude.
They
Corey
were willing to say things while also smiling, but they were also to be like, I'm being stern now.
Yeah.
And you could always get the read that you needed to get.
Mhm.
Like, all right, this
Yeah.
is where we're at with this individual.
Never impolite, but certainly stern. Like, hey, just so you know, I'm your manager. I'm your manager's manager. So I need you to do what I say. Thanks.
Right.
And it's like, it feels wrong sometimes at first, but you're like, that was very polite. I have to do this. You know?
and that's exactly what I'm not expecting out of Brienne.
So, yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Go.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, like, I've been a retail manager. I mean, both of you should know this by now. I mean, I managed a grocery store, and ever since probably my 3rd or 6th month when I was in that company, they were priming me for that. They saw that I had good work ethic. They saw that I was good at the job and that I cared and that no matter what I did, I continued to move. And so they primed me for that position. And when I got to that position, I realized pretty quickly that it is incredibly toxic environment. That whole system of retail, and it's part of the issue I have, is that, again, the good managers will leave because they realize that their talents are squandered, their ideas are wasted. And I had the same issue where I came in 19 years old running the dairy department, which is, if anybody that's never done grocery work before, that is the hardest department to run because the top 5 items that are sold in any grocery store: bread, milk, eggs, and typically, especially around the holidays, butter. So I mean, like, I'm already 3 of the top 5 typically. Bananas are another one. I don't really understand that one, but anyway. I was doing the dairy department, and they were constantly cutting my hours, even though I reduced labor hours. So I was saving the money by not making people work so much. I ordered just as much as I needed to, so I wasn't having a lot of overhead and buying useless product. And because of that, I also wasn't throwing away a lot of food. So I mean, literally in every department and every single category, anything that needed to be improved, so my sales were way up and my cost was way down. So I was saving them money everywhere, and it still wasn't enough. They were still asking me more. And so it led to a point where I was just like, fuck it, I don't care. This isn't worth my time.
Fuck your stupid store, you dumb bitches.
Yeah. And I mean, I was working literally 6 days a week for a year and a half. I was coming in, I worked every holiday because I was also the type of manager that said, you have kids, you have a family, I don't. My dad and I weren't talking, it was just me, so I'm like, I can work, it doesn't impact my life to work the holidays, and I get time and a half, so I'll take it. I don't really want to, but I'll take it. And so, like, my people loved me. I was very fair. I gave people days off. I did everything I could because that's what a good manager does. But upper management had a problem with it. And because they always do, because they want to squeeze every ounce of productivity and every ounce of money they can out of people before they squeeze them dry like a toothpaste and throw them away. And that's what happens. And I can see that that's kind of what Brienne's motive is to kind of have that kind of mentality.
So that's actually exactly where I was going. I won't say I'm a master in psychology. I won't say I'm an expert. I won't say I have some crazy...
Dr. Parts, and you're
right.
Professional opinion.
I like to think about how people act. And sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm right. In this case, I am putting together all of the things I'm hearing about Brienne. All of the little ways I see her stupid badger-like claws digging into my world. and perhaps I'm a little heated about it.
A little, yeah, sure. That's what we'll call it. A little.
I see all these things, and my mind tells me this is not a person interested in improving the store, getting to know the workers. This is a person interested in getting rid of as many problem children as they can and replacing them with good little choir boys.
I would have gotten fired so fast, and I was right.
Oh, I would. See, the problem that I've always had, and just as I said before, I'm a good worker. And even jobs that I don't like, man, am I good at my job. And the problem is that every shitty boss, every micromanager particularly, has always had a problem. Because they want to do something where they punish me or get rid of me for not following every one of their orders or doing everything they say. But then they look at my stats and they go, we can't touch him because we need him. Holy shit. And at my current job, it's the same way, where they have a lot of problems with me because I throw it in their face and I tell them that they're being dumb. But then they go, but he's actually kind of the best that we have, and we're bleeding people pretty bad.
I've been told multiple times. So I know for a fact that my company will go on without me if I decided to just quit one day. But I have been told multiple times by different supervisors is that you're a top employer performer. And I find that so surprising because no one says that on my reviews. And I'm just like, sure, this company will go on, but like, even with me and my other top performers, we struggle a lot. Like a lot.
So
and so
as
I'm
far
just
as
like,
reviews go, reviews are absolute nonsense, just used to keep track of all of your behavior. So at any point in time you become an inconvenience, they can just go up. Here's where you are being a problem. We can use this as grounds to get rid of you.
Just like every 50-page end user license agreement for, Apple or using the Steam store. How many people have actually read the employee handbook that is 300 pages long?
Yeah, but if you're good
there's
enough,
a reason for that because they want to fire you over any little. If they need a reason, they will find it.
True, but if you are good enough, even though they don't need you to move on, they will ignore the things that you are bad at for the most part.
Up to a point. That's the problem.
Up to a point.
Once you get to upper management, that's not the case.
True.
Upper management does not ignore problems. Upper management zeroes in and says, I'm going to whip my big old manager cock out and start flopping it about in somebody's face until they either do what I want or leave.
Now I gotta change the Facebook page to have it includes adult content.
I need a graphic of floppy manager cock.
No, we don't.
Send it to our Twitter. We don't have one. Don't worry.
Pull a mulligan. Get in the comments. Just tons of fan art of manager cock show up.
Floppy manager cock.
The next thing I know is that every one of my Twitch streams is full of just manager dicks.
Let me get a.
It's just ASCII dicks in your Twitch comments.
Go to your job.
Like, what happened?
Go to your job. Go to your manager. Be like, whip it out, bitch. I need a picture for this podcast. Send it to our Twitter.
I literally have to go today and change our Facebook and Patreon to be adult content now.
At geocities.com.
I don't know why I thought it wouldn't include adult content. I was really thought it would be fine.
I was wrong. What are you fucking talking about?
Fun fact.
Guys.
I didn't realize that you had, even though you said, "Hey, I did this for you guys." I checked the wrong section on Google Drive and just was listening to. So this is a multi-part failure on me. So one,
Dirk Mandrill here to tell you you're just a failure, boy.
Random network, internet, Wi-Fi maintenance from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. Cool. That's when I'm most active. Low key. Like 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. I'm still up doing stuff. Sure. Whatever. Overnight and during the day, power outages. 2 power outages happened because power outage happened while I was having to do it with my mom. And then another one happened, I guess, overnight because when I woke up again, the oven was blinking again. So that's cool. Cool. So I lost everything because at first I was like, oh, I'll just leave it because it says it's saved, but it can't pull it up. So just wait. So then it comes back, no go, because my computer turned off. It didn't save anything. But number 3, I'm losing track. I'm really fast to what I was talking about. What happened?
Power outages.
Multi-part.
Yeah, we were talking about Patreon, and the third thing happened. Yeah. You were like, "How's this thing going?" I was like, "It's going fine." Come to find out, you did it. So I was listening to the full freaking thing and working off of that. And I'm being really specific about what we're talking about in the spider map.
The name says uncut.
It did not. It might have. I just opened it.
It might have said uncut.
It might have said uncut.
I have the Google Drive open. I'm checking it right now, you piece of shit.
Well, Deion, I just want a side note here. Where the fuck do you live that this is happening? Are you at fucking 8 Mile? Are you in Detroit right now? What is going on?
I live in Laurel # Maryland City, Maryland. And it's rained every other day for the past 2 weeks.
Hey,
in the past 3 days, it has been torrential rains where they interrupt like internet and radio podcasts and things like that to say, "Hey, get inside! It's raining too much."
There are two MP3s that are titled "Seas Episode 1."
No, Matt. This is not your fault. What I did was I went to shared drives, not shared with me. And I opened what I had. Basically, it just was our uncut audio together. It's not your fault. God. I'm just dumb.
He's not blaming you.
I never knew this.
I'm sorry. I work in IT, and holy shit, the amount of times people go, "You didn't do this right. Why didn't you tell me to do this?" And then I have to go, as per my previous email, I did.
So you mean when you were in IT, your managers also sucked?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I'm IT, but I am retail IT. Holy shit.
I don't understand how retail managers suck because they know end users are some shit. They know. And then it's still your fault when things don't go right.
because the problem is the retail managers, and even with my managers who are IT retail, are held by the same standards of we only care about bare numbers. So we're gonna bend over backwards for our customers or for our clientele, whatever it is, and we're not gonna give a shit about our own employees because we only want money. We want our bonuses. We don't give a shit how you feel. We don't give a shit that we have 10 people come in and 20 people leave.
Or 2 people for a store that requires at least 5.
Exactly, yeah. Or a dairy department that needs at least 3 or 4 people and only hires 1.5. So they don't care. They just want the shit done, and they're willing to beat and break and bleed people to get it done. And that's what happens.
And that's actually exactly where I think things are going at my store. Is I am worried that they will see that my direct manager, Jack, is the kind of manager, Matt, that you described. A kind, understanding, someone who doesn't dismiss the problems that their workers are having, tries to be a level head whenever dealing with problematic issues at work. He is a very kind individual. Did you just say vain?
I said they.
Oh yeah, they are a very kind individual. Or they're not non-binary. I think he's he, him. So I'm afraid Brienne is going to see this positivity in Jack, and I'm afraid it actually is already what he sees.
Aww.
Or she sees. And he's going to be like, that's where I start. That's the first thing I prune from this bush.
Or, that's the thing, a poison in this bush, because if I can get rid of that, it is so much easier to poison the rest of the people.
So it makes me worried, and sadly, it's in my position. There's not much I can do. I don't know what to do, and it saddens me because this is a good position that I'm in. I mean, it's not one that I want to keep. Honestly, if I could do anything, this would be great. Doing this little podcast thing of ours, but realistically, I'm gonna be stuck here for a little bit. And I really don't want to have to deal with this fucking jagoff walking into a store, whipping out the manager cock, slapping it in my face all slimy like.
Just on the counter.
I'm just like, yo, man, get out of here. Or woman.
And
or individual of nondescript gender.
It's just not worth it. It's part of the reason I got out of retail. Honestly, I quit school and I was going to be retail manager. Not because I wanted to, not because it was my life's goal like this other person, but it was just because, whatever, I don't got to go to school, I don't got to get a degree, and it makes decent enough money. And then once I had it, no. Back in the day, a lot of the managers who were like, 30, have been there for 30, 20 years, would talk about back in the day, back in the 90s or back in the 80s, whatever. It was so much better, so much easier, and they would make money, and the cost of living increases, and they would get vacation time, and all of that was getting cut. I mean, the managers were losing vacation time as they were getting promoted, and it was just, that was enough for me to see, even at 19, someone who's just barely getting into the adult world was like, this is unsustainable. This is never going to get better, and it's going to keep going on, and it's not worth it, which is a shame, because I would have continued to be a retail bitch. Because, like, whatever, I can make $50,000. I'm not going to make much more than that. I'm going to get capped. But I don't got to go to school. I don't have to take a debt. I can figure it out. And that's what I was willing to do. Yeah. It might not have always been like that, but it would have been like that for a couple of years. And just like Nick, I mean, there's a point where you're just like, this is it. This is my position for the moment. But I'm going to get out as soon as I can because this shit just ain't worth it.
Oh, yeah. Writing's on the wall. Like, if he doesn't like Jack, he's not gonna like me.
Dude, I can't believe that because
I had a conversation with Jack about it. They were literally like, I am a person who has not really ever had problems being liked. Like, I've had people who aren't necessarily a fan, right? Aren't vibing, but have never been just like, I don't like you to my face. Have never been dismissive or rude. And I'm having a really hard time dealing with this guy because I feel like he just doesn't like me, and I'm not used to that. And I'm sitting here looking at him and just being like, Jack, I don't know what to tell you. Honestly, I think that's part of his game. I think he wants you to feel that way. I think it's gaslighting.
That's crazy. I can't stand that. Previously, because like even like because we're talking about a convenience store / pharmacy, we had people like you remember the superstar worker we had that had moved on. That person, even though they weren't the pharmacist, was basically like, and they weren't lead tech either. They were like next in charge of just things because they had so much experience, and their sibling was also a pharmacist that had gone through that system, right? And so it was like they didn't dislike Jack, but like they were like, I get how this works. I know you're doing your job. You do annoy me by existing though, and that was their personality. Just in general, everyone annoyed their existence. But like, even though Jack definitely didn't say top pharmacy employee doesn't like me, they never said that. They never said like, oh, I think it's personal, because it wasn't. It was just business, and that person did business, and Jack did business, and it's just you work together. And even though for some reason there's no overlap, basically, except for in like the retail pharmacy section of the store.
The overlap is during inventory when they cancel inventory because inventory in the pharmacy is going to be so bad.
Exactly. But I do genuinely, even though I hated working retail and I didn't love Jack's philosophy on a lot of things, we did get along because they were like Yumi and Matt, and we talked and it was fine. I have a hard time believing that someone that just genuinely doesn't vibe or like that person is trying to be a good person.
So you have to be a sociopath at that point. I've met plenty of those people where I'm like, even I, who have a cold, hard exterior, can be like, I may not like you, but I understand that I understand why everybody else likes you, but you just don't click with me. That's the thing. Is that I don't think you're bad. I don't hate you. I don't have anything ill will against you. You and I just don't click. That's just the thing of it.
Mm-hmm. And even though we don't click, you do your job well, so I have no reason to complain.
Yeah. I'm not gonna sit there and hate on you. Nick, go ahead.
I think T.S. Eliot has a really interesting quote. Okay. I know, right? No, I found it while I was researching.
Holy crap!
I was researching and I found this one. T.S. Eliot has a really interesting quote: "Is half
the
harm is done in this world due to people who want to feel important. They don't mean to do harm, but harm does not interest them. Or they do not see it, or they justify it because they are absorbed in the endless struggle to think well of themselves." And I'm like, that's exactly it. Every psychopath manager I've ever had, I guarantee, has never been interested in being a dickbag. It just doesn't matter to them that they are. And it drives me insane.
So,
it just drives me insane.
And this is one of the things where I mentioned this a lot about teachers, and it was, I said the same thing about any social workers or policemen or whatever. I don't truly generally believe that the general populace, of course, there's always exceptions and whatever, but most teachers go into the profession because they care about teaching and education and they care about their students. The problem that I had is that so many of them forgot what it was like to be a teenager. So many of them just got burdened and brutalized by the system and by administration. Just
if you're not careful, you lose yourself while growing up. You forget where you come from.
And and I see that a lot in people around here, and a lot of people that I know, is that like, well, I didn't have a problem. I was like, well, actually you did. You just forgot what it was like. I never did. I never forgot what it was like to be a teenager. I never forgot what it was like to not eat. I never forgot what it was like that my parents didn't love me. I never forgot what it was like that teachers didn't listen to me and just kept hounding us with homework and we didn't have time. And I watched, even though it didn't really affect me because I was naturally intelligent. Again, one of my biases, I'm not going to ignore it. That is just what I am. But watching the people who struggle more and more because, just do the work, just study. They need special attention and you're not giving it to them. And the amount of times that I saw teachers be like, well, I love math. Why don't these people love math? Because they don't understand it. Because their brain isn't wide as yours.
But you forget the parts that you had a really hard time learning.
Right.
And that you hated.
Like and that's why I always studied I always studied something while I was teaching. And I studied art. I studied audio engineering. I studied a lot of things that I never either did.
To frustrate yourself so that you will not forget how it is to be a student at every single level.
Exactly, because what a lot of people forget, especially after like 10 years of teaching, of how do you not understand this math formula? Because you've been doing it for 30 years. Of course it's easy to you. You forget what it's like.
Teach A squared plus B squared equals C squared 100,000 times.
So for a large part of my childhood, I've always had the glasses. I've always been the talker. I've always been the thinker. Everyone that's met me that was like significantly older, like 10 plus years, because it was like, oh man, I could just see it. You're gonna be a professor. You're gonna be a teacher. You're gonna be a professor. You look like a professor with your glasses on, and you're so smart, and you talk so much about all these things that, and even my mom says,
God, this man won't shut up. He's got to be a teacher. Holy shit.
Yeah, but even my mom said, even as a child, you just thought about things.
I would have thought you'd be like a spoken word poet in a downtown New York.
Again, I feel like it's giving off stereotypes. It's giving off. Like, you guys are you guys messing with me today? Like
the quill, the page, the writ,
you guys are so wrong.
Page.
I hate both of you so much today.
You talk very eloquently for someone of your kind.
I swear to God. Whoa! I will nuke this whole project. I swear to God.
Oh my God! Every time I meet a person at work who is well spoken, I do think to myself, wow, they're very well spoken. And then I get, individuals of color who are also well spoken, and I immediately am like, shit. I feel awful for thinking this
because
about
it's so terrible. It's
because I'm just so used to
bang
dang bang jang dang 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 bang dang.
I can say that to Deion because he knows that I'm joking. Holy shit, if someone said that to him on the street, I'd be like, punch that man. Murder this man in the face. With his face.
A fun fact, Americans are super fucking dumb.
That's my whole thing is like...
White, black, or otherwise, sorry the rest of you. You Americans have a really drastically shitty education compared to the rest of the world. You're not a well-spoken person on average.
Hey, I was a teacher. You're correct.
You're just not. What was I saying?
You were saying that people tell you you're smart and they say you're gonna be a doctor. And
when I was a kid, they were like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be a professor." Fun fact, and I've known this since I was about in the late high school, like late junior year, senior year, and all throughout college, because I continued to get it. Like, oh, you sound like a professor. You look like a professor. You're gonna be a teacher. What are you gonna do? I went to school for art. I am an art major that did not finish school. Exactly. No. I am your stereotypical art major that didn't finish school, and everyone was like, "You should go into teaching. You should be a teacher." You did blah, 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 blah. Listen, I have the patience to be a teacher, I think, but guess what? I don't have. I do not have the patience to be a teacher. Unless it was like a college professor level, because my thing is this, right? I have a weakness, and I've identified and acknowledged this weakness, and I'm working on it, but it's hard. Not everyone can be a freaking teacher. I
is
do
your
not.
the smelly back of your knees. Is that the problem?
Almost. You're very close. You're actually very
What?
close. Crazy.
Is that a
He has
racist
really
thing? I don't even know
smelly
what that
knee
means.
No, just the back
So
of
what
his
it is-
knees smell like mildew.
So what it is I do not understand right away when you do not understand what I have already said or understood. And that's a problem for me.
You do not have the patience to be a teacher.
No, exactly, Matt. So for like the first like 20 years of my life, I have always operated on the assumption that I was late to the party. Like, oh, I just learned this. Everyone else must already know this. So while that's in one sense a humbling view to not assume that you're smarter than everyone else, it was also a very privileged view to then also assume that once I learned it, everyone else must have already knew it prior to me. Because what I'm actually doing is assuming you know something.
So here's the thing.
And then when
assume...
you don't, it messed me up. I got upset. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't understand? I understood.
I'm the opposite. I'm literally like, I assume nobody knows anything and get very frustrated because I'm not great at explaining things. So I'm just like, why don't you understand?
That's
and
equally problematic. But like, I get where you're coming from.
So Nick
like,
is the other type of teacher who is like, they're very passionate about the job, but don't really know how to do it.
Right, exactly.
Nick has all this knowledge he wants to give to people, but then people aren't picking it up, and you're like, but this knowledge is interesting and cool. Why aren't you picking it up? And I'm like,
exactly.
And I'm like, by the time you got to me, I feel like you should have understood this. So the fact that you don't bothers me. Like, what do you mean you don't understand the Pythagorean theorem? It is as simple as it gets. And unfortunately, I still believe that. If you do not understand the Pythagorean theorem and you're over 15, I'm confused. What is not to get? It's just numbers.
Hold on. Explain to me, what is the Pythagorean theorem?
Don't do this on record. Okay, the Pythagorean theorem is
and what I'm trying to get at is
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll try. And if I'm wrong, you know what? Screw me. I was never a good student or a professor. But all my life, people said
great student.
I was a professor. I was a great student.
Okay.
So it was, what is it? It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And there are a lot of different ways to prove this. And it's actually kind of cool to look at when you're doing like a physical example. But thinking about it can be difficult, and I understand that. But once you've conceptualized it, or once you've shown someone how to conceptualize it, right, that's where I run into problems. Because if a student still doesn't understand after that, where I've done what I feel is a very clear visual example, like, you know, the water example where they pour it into two squares or two triangles, and they two squares, cylinders or whatever.
Oh, I know this one.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking
volumes.
about. Exactly.
And then the same volume but different sizes.
There's three squares
small and thick
around
is the
a
same as
triangle.
tall and thin.
Yeah, exactly. There's three squares that are situated in a triangle formation. So there's like the A side of the triangle, right, but extrapolated to a square. There's the B side of the triangle, extrapolated to a square, and then there's the C side of the triangle. And you take the A and B side and you pour them into the C square, and it suddenly fills it up, and it's perfect. And you're just like, how does that work? And I'm like, let me explain it. And then you explain it, and they don't get it, and then I get mad.
It's
if
magic,
you do not understand the math after I've explained it, I will get mad at you.
Actually, Matt, before you go on, I have a question, Deion.
Yes, sir.
Because you're adamant about this, I want to know. This is another theorem that you should know. It is C equals the square root of A squared plus B squared.
Over what?
No, that's just it. C equals the square root of A squared plus B squared.
The hang on. C equals the square root of A plus. I feel like you're talking about
Nick, you broke him. It's the transitive property, my dude.
It's the Pythagorean theorem. It's also the Pythagorean theorem.
It's also a version of the Pythagorean theorem?
Yes. This is my problem with math.
Okay. So gentlemen, and this is the problem I had in math.
Oh, you're right.
So
that's cool.
So, Deion, what does the equal sign mean?
It doesn't mean the same. It means
what?
Well, it means the same. It means the same. It means the same.
I see you quickly changed.
Sorry,
I understand math.
I'm reading and I'm talking. So what's up?
Yeah. So and this is a problem I often have with my middle school students is that I would say 1 plus 3 equals 4, and then I would say 4 equals 1 plus 3, and people would understand that. But as soon as you start putting those variables in it,
those A's and B's and C's, yeah,
people get confused. You go, what is this? And I'm like, it's the same thing. The equal sign is a balance. It means that the left side is the same thing.
as
it is the
right
same
side.
thing as the right side, no matter which order you put it in, as long as they're on the same side. And that is where it gets kind of confusing. And if you're not good at explaining math, so your explanation of the Pythagorean theorem is good for math and logic-minded people, but for people who aren't like that and say, but what is a squared? What is that? What does the a represent? What is a square? What does that kind of mean? And that is where it is so much easier to show them with examples, which you did mention. You did mention that you would show them visual examples. And my explanation would be a squared plus b squared equals c squared, because a right triangle, which is one that has an L shape, it is always straight lines, always results in this. It never changes. So this is the formula we use because we figured out thousands of years ago that if we do this, it always results in these sides being the same measures.
And see,
constants in math really fuck me up. Like really,
I would explain it as I would basically just break it down to its bare minimum and be like, all right, let's take each part and describe it. What is a? What is a squared? That's 2 a's. That's a times a. What is b squared? That's b times b, both in parentheses. So why are they in parentheses? Because they have to be. That's what a square means.
I wouldn't. So whenever I taught math, I never just said because it is. I always explained it.
Right.
So the same
and
thing
that's the problem. That's actually my biggest problem is math. Is I hate the answer because that's what it is.
And I hate that too, because when I taught math, I never did that. Why is it when you add a negative, it becomes smaller? Because what is a negative? You're losing something.
It's not of that number.
Yeah. So when you add a negative, you're adding something that you lost. So you're taking something away. That's why it gets smaller. Oh, that makes sense.
Why instead of add a negative, you just
subtract. Yeah.
Right.
Because a negative is a subtraction. It's the same thing.
I found a book in college that I loved. I was working over the summer. Yeah, right. I was working over the summer.
Buddy, I was a Latin and math teacher who also studied science and now does IT. I have written my own books. I've written a textbook. I cannot imagine a bigger nerd than me than Gary Gygax, who created D&D.
Fair. You're probably a slightly bigger nerd than you. One time I was working with the janitorial staff over the summer of my college campus, and they were like, hey, you guys need to clean the entire library. I was like a hog in heaven. I mean, like, sure, I was dusting off shelves and replacing light bulbs and vacuuming floors. I found a book in the math section that was like basic proofs, and this dude meant basic. What is 1 + 2? Are you sure? Let me prove it to you. And it was like, I had a hard time following some of his proofs. Math, we take so much math for granted. It's insane. Yeah, sure, a unit plus a unit equals double that unit because we know what those words mean. But when we start assigning specific nomenclature to terms, proving that they do in fact work out the way that we have described them to do, is in fact quite the endeavor. It was a whole book. I only got to about a third of it before I was like, I don't actually think I like math that much. I like math, not that much.
No, I don't like math that much either. I stopped at calculus because calculus is the point where you no longer can give an answer to why does it do that. The answer is, well, because it does. And
because what we observe is that it has done this before. That's the answer,
and that's usually what the answer is, or it's because in order to explain that, I actually got to teach you like 8 other levels of math because it's all interrelated. And so the easiest explanation is because it do.
Oh yeah, I mean, I once worked at a plant nursery with a dude who was a microbotanist,
microbiologist,
deep sea botanist. His thing was
that sounds like some sort of like a secret organization.
So what he was doing at the nursery was he was actually in the process of writing up a paper that he had just spent several months working on, doing, or I guess several years, doing tests and stuff on, and he'd actually just come back to the States, needed some stuff to do while, he was also writing this paper, needed an income, all these other things. So he and I had a conversation about math, and me explaining, because at the time I believe I was in college algebra class, because algebra 2 was my worst fucking experience until I experienced calculus. Trigonometry I liked.
Okay.
Yeah, trigonometry I understood. Calculus, right over my head.
Same. Well, and that's because of my teacher. My teacher was really bad for calculus. Because again, it was the same thing of like, I'm someone who learns and retains information by why does it do this? How does it make sense? And calculus is full of just do it.
So I guess he's not. I guess he was a botanist. I guess deep sea biologist. I don't know. Botanist is the study of plants. Yes.
Yes. Whereas biologist is the study of just living things. Really.
I had to make sure because I was like, I thought botanist is just a person who likes plants, but I can't remember.
No, they use it for anybody that messes with plants, anybody that studies them as well.
So he was just doing the job for a little extra paycheck. Okay. And so he and I got this conversation about math, and I was explaining that part of my problem with math is I can't understand things that just are. Saying it just is doesn't make it make sense. Like, it's why I have problems with fractions and decimals. I'm like, you're saying there's an infinite amount of space between 0 and 1 hidden behind a decimal point. That's going to fuck me up, fam.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to mess you up.
Well, I do that in physics a lot, too.
He began to explain to me that one of the problems that he sees a lot, or he experienced a lot, because he also had a history with math, and I guess being a science major, math is pretty important.
You're always going to use math as much as I loved it when people are like, I don't like math, so I'm going to go into chemistry. Motherfucker, what are you doing? You're dealing with extremely small numbers.
Yeah. Want to go be an astrologist? No, not astrologist. Astronomer? No, not an astronomer.
Who studies the cosmos? Same thing.
Yeah, you want to go study
large
stars?
Numbers.
Yeah, you're going to be dealing with fuck you up numbers too. Anyway, so he's explaining to me that one of the problems he saw a lot in math is we don't teach the difference between physical math and theoretical math. We sort of teach them interchangeably. There is an infinite amount of space between 0 and 1. And on a quantum mindfuck scale, in reality, there is as well.
And in a logical sense, but there isn't. So one of the things,
but in reality, there is a 0 and a 1.
So what I like to say is
will always be an endpoint.
There is, and this is going to sound stupid. There is infinity.
There is, yeah.
And then there are also infinities, and they're not equal. So there are infinities that do not equal each other. And that is a concept that's hard to grasp for tons of people, sure. But not every infinity is equal to one another. It's just not true.
Because math, the problem I have with a lot of math teaching is that you start off like, K through 5 is all about math is rule and logic and it can't be broken.
And physicality.
But then you get to 0, which is impossible. You can't have 0 of really anything except it's abstract. I have 0 gold, but it doesn't mean that there's 0 gold in the universe. It still exists. But then you get the negatives, and negatives don't actually exist. Negatives are an abstract number. And so infinity and infinity plus 1 throw a lot of people off because it's like, how can you have infinity plus 1? You still have infinity. I'm like, well, the thing is, it's infinity that grows faster than regular infinity. So imagine you have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, and then you have 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. One's going to go faster. They're both infinity. And that's where people go, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, you're kind of right.
You're right. It doesn't really make all the much sense.
His point. He was saying that the problem with the way we teach math is we interchange physical math and theoretical math. And the reality of it is theoretical math doesn't work in reality. It works on paper, and then we can show that thing on paper equals what we see in reality. That's that equals sign is the balance. Which is why we also have that little squiggly, which is like somewhat
approximately
variation. And then we have the plus and minus, and then we have the less than or equal to and greater than. It's why we have all those signs, because we need those signs for us to equate the theoretical with the physical. And he said, again, like if you cut a piece of wood, there's not an infinite space in that space you're cutting. There's a physical limit in that space. But if you do it on paper, the measurement of that piece of wood could be 3.6 feet repeating. That foot of wood doesn't have 6666666 repeating space. That point of wood has an end point. But for the sake of paper, for the sake of theory, it is actually easier if we just put the 666 repeating, because that's what it would be on our paper.
Because if you want to be perfectly accurate, you would have to get infinitesimally small.
Well, according to the laws of physics and chemistry, it's also impossible. So one of the things I always taught my students when we taught fractions, because the middle school that I taught at was actually quite behind. I mean, these kids didn't know fractions at all or decimals. They didn't even know what they were. They had seen them, but they had never understood them. But does anybody remember what 1/3 is as a decimal or a fraction? I mean, a percent.
It's 33.3333.
3333. Yeah.
But so you always have a remainder of 1 repeat or 0.1 repeating.
So what is? So that's 1 out of 3. What's 2 out of 3?
This is going.
Yeah.
I love this.
It's
666. And so logically, the other one would be 9999.
0.3 over 3.
That's not what it is.
No, but it is. 0.9 repeating is in fact literally equal to 1.
And that's because it is so close to 1. Yeah, it pisses people off, and it should, because it's something that it's not in math. It's not properly taught. The 0.9999999 is so close to 1 that it is considered as 1 because that's what it is. Because there is really, and in reality,
because in translation to physical world, it is 1.
Yeah. And the thing is, and the reason I explain it is I used to teach my kids, and we would basically I would bring in something to cut, and it'd say cut into thirds, measure it out. You cannot do it because the laws of physics and chemistry state matter cannot be created nor destroyed, which means no matter what you do,
infinitely small matter, you just have one.
One piece is going to be 0.33, another piece is going to be 0.33, but another piece is going to be 0.34 because there is no way for us to delete that 1 point of matter, and that is why it is considered 1. Because in reality, there's the theory, which is 0.999, but the reality is you have to have that somewhere. You can't actually have a third because it doesn't exist in the real world because you can't. Right. It doesn't exist.
That's why we have the with a remainder of whatever.
Since we brought up semantics, if you want to be super technical, you cut away that last point. It is 0.98 as a matter of fact, but when you cut it, you removed some content and it just fell to the floor.
But it still exists.
It still exists, but you can't account for it because it's gone. Oh, no. It's on the ground. You lost it. I have in my hands 0.99998. Yeah. The piece of it that's on the exactly. Like you cut a fruit in half. You have 2 perfect halves. You're wrong. You don't have 2 perfect halves. You have 2 equivalent halves for your intents and purposes.
Many a stoned out night has been spent staring at a piece of paper ripped in half, trying to figure out where the space connecting those 2 halves has gone. Because I'm like, it's not like I cut it. Where did the thing that I cut go?
Right.
It can't have gone anywhere. It's there, but it's not there. If it were there, they'd be connected.
Have you seen
one of the things? Yeah, go. No, you go.
No, you go. We're both Canadians. We'll both go. No, you'll go.
No, you go. Have you guys seen that episode of Portlandia?
I can't watch Portlandia. I've watched the first season, and when I saw you, I forced myself to finish the first season. And then because I watched the first season, I was like, I owe it to myself to start the second season. That's the first show I ever started on Netflix that I did not finish out of spite.
Deion's got himself set up like that guy in Clockwork Orange. Just I
don't want to talk about the movie.
I haven't seen it. I want to watch it. I've told my list.
You've never seen Clockwork Orange?
I never finished it. Yeah, no, it's not in my thing.
Clockwork Orange is a great film if you can get past like 1 or 2 really rough sequences.
That one sequence is brutal. Like you see it in movies quite frequently, but they cut off. They it's like 5 seconds and they cut away. No, this scene plays out and it is incredibly uncomfortable.
Is it as bad as that scene in Gerald's Game? That you warned me about that I couldn't look away from?
So put it this way. Instead of like a physical violence, it is much more sexual in nature.
Oh.
And that's why it's hard to watch. Meanwhile, because it is incredibly realistic.
Singing in the rain.
Yeah. It's incredibly realistic in that sense, and it's also very uncomfortable because they are delighting in it, and it goes on for way too long.
But if you feel a sense of indignant retribution, that happens in the movie. So if you're looking for it, it does come back to bite him.
And it took us.
Okay, cool. I will look forward to that. I don't know why I've never seen it, but I also am not regretting not having watched it at this point. Based on that,
what am I thinking? If you watch, so I don't know if I've told you this, Dion, but I actually got Jen to watch most of Gerald's Game.
No, you did.
Most of.
Yes, because of that one scene.
Not because of the scene that I can't watch, which is the degloving scene. I'm just going to talk about it.
You told me, though, that she didn't finish it for a reasonable reason.
She didn't finish it because
of the scene with the bench.
Yes, the bench.
Oh, yeah. No, that's super... I can see that.
So, for those who don't know the plot of Gerald's Game, I'm just going to spoil it. If you don't want to hear this, if you
have a second and a half.
Also, kind of graphic warning, I guess. We'll just
I'm gonna
ahead
try
like a minute and a half.
I'm going to try and be vague. Dude and wife go on a date, go out into the woods, try and fix their marriage, trying to get kinky because wife said she would. Didn't realize what she was signing up for until she was already handcuffed to the bed, and her husband starts to play out a rape fantasy.
Communications failure.
Yeah, bad communication. Always communicate with your partner, people. A healthy sex life
specifically
is built
what you
upon communication
want.
And trust.
Yeah.
And listen, if you're married, just tell them. They're stuck with you to a certain extent. Just tell them what you want. It's cool.
I don't like
My
this
parents
idea.
would disagree with that.
I don't like the entrapment that we're doing here.
That's a bit from what's his name? Comedian
Buddy, that doesn't narrow it down.
Tom Segura. Where he's like, we spent so much of our lives lying about what we're into, and then he gets married, and his wife is like, "I'll do whatever you want. I'm married. I love you." And he just describes some gross ass shit. And she's like, "I'll spit butter in your ass I'll spit butter in your ass if you want me to." And he's like, "What? I could have done this the whole time."
This is amazing. Anyway, so in the process of husband enacting out his rape fantasy, she freaks out, tells him no. Tells her to unlock him, and he's like, no, I'll be sweet and gentle now, I promise. And she's like, no, unlock me.
Parks, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. If you're doing anything like this, have a safe word so that there is a clear way when you say no or say the safe word, it stops. That is very important.
And honestly, you also read the room. If someone's saying no in a manner that doesn't sound like it's part of the fun,
yeah.
Maybe ask them if they're all right, or just stop. I don't know.
CNC is such a touchy subject. It requires the utmost extreme amount of communication.
To get through this horrible spoiler,
yeah,
chick kicks her husband off. A woman kicks her husband off of her. He ends up having a heart attack because the erectile dysfunction pills he's taking. Dies on the floor. She's chained to her bed for the next however many days.
I think it's 2 days or so.
In the process, she basically has a full psyche break. I think it's actually something more like 3 or 4. She has like a full psyche break and begins to relive her trauma through internalized versions of herself and her now dead husband. And the trauma that gets pulled up is that her father sexually assaulted her when she was younger. And there is a particularly rough sequence where they are watching an eclipse together, and her father off screen is
enjoying himself,
things to himself.
Yeah.
While she just sits there looking horrified on screen. While she's like looking away from him because he's sitting on her lap. She's sitting on his lap. So I was watching this, and the degloving scene, which comes later in the movie, is the scene that really does like get all of just me not happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I hadn't even considered that this sequence could make someone feel that way, because it's just not the one I think of. It's not the first scene that comes to my mind having watched this film.
I think as men, that is typically not.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. It's very true. And I was watching this with our friend Jen. She's and I'm watching it with her, and she starts like just getting visibly uncomfortable, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Not really." I was like, "Do you want me to turn it off?" She's like, "Yeah, I'd actually rather not watch this anymore." I'm like, "That's fair. I'm really sorry about that." And I was just like, "Wow, watching." It's just interesting to me because Gerald's Game is a fantastic movie, and I'm the kind of person who wants to finish a movie no matter what. And I'm not proud of some of the movies I've watched. If you've seen
done things, you people
look, let me tell you, that is exactly how I feel about the Serbian film. I have done things that no man should, and if they do, they should always remember and be
these
humbled
moments
by it.
should be lost like tears.
No, they should remember and be humbled by it. Because I need to remember that Jizo Pete's are there some crazy ass motherfuckers in this world, and they're still making art.
Yeah, it's like have you seen
if
Martyrs?
That's what you want to call it.
Yeah, if that's what you want to call it.
Like Teeth, I hesitate to call art, but it's a movie,
Nick,
and it got made.
Nick, have you seen Martyrs?
I have seen Martyrs.
Yeah.
I love Martyrs. I actually think Martyrs is very artistically done.
I think it is very artistic, but it is also, you cannot deny that it is a snuff film. Oh, yeah. That is legally a snuff film, I guess.
Like, no one actually dies.
I'm glad I haven't seen that, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
You kind of wish. There are tons of movies that have, it's a good story. I love horror movies that are just, it's a good story. I also love movies that are, it's a terrible story.
Let me tell you something. By no fault of our own, my partner and I have watched the two most recent John Cena movies. And they weren't he wasn't starring, he was guest starring. It was Fast 9 and the new Suicide Squad movie. And no one has ever said John Cena's a good actor.
I've said it. I think he's a good actor.
Okay, so fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree.
Are good actors because that is actually their job.
No, they are good at carrying out plots, but because the thing is, right? WWE wrestling, the storylines that you have to play out are not. Yes. I'm going to piss off so many people right now. It is acting.
Let it go.
Yeah, it is acting. Sure. Fine. It is not difficult to pretend that you're mad at somebody and then to throw them around.
The fuck does that mean?
So the thing is, right? And people get it confused because The Rock is a decent actor. And John Cena...
I actually disagree. I think The Rock is a worse actor than John Cena.
Okay, so the thing is, I think they're the same. I think the only reason that John Cena is doing this is because he doesn't want to get shown up. Because they're showmen. They are showmen. They put on a good performance. They are performers. They are not actors, in my opinion. Come at me in the comments. I don't care. The Rock is, in fact, a mediocre at best actor. John Cena is following him, which is sad. Because he's not that good to begin with.
If you want to be real, John Cena's following Dave Bautista, who
even worse. Because I actually think Bautista is pretty funny.
Drax the Destroyer from Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Bautista was in Army of the Dead, which was bad, and also Hotel Artemis.
I think Bautista's the worst actor of all.
And Hotel Artemis, which was also bad, but I enjoyed his performances more than I enjoyed the two most recent Cena performances. And I'm calling them performances because they were not acting. The problem is I also had just finished watching him do Fast 9. Also, the problem with me watching Fast 9 is I hadn't watched a single movie since Tokyo Drift, so apparently they had been upping the ante anyway. So,
yeah, don't watch the Fast and Furious movies after Tokyo Drift. They're all bad.
Hold on, no. So
the worst
just
mistake
don't watch Fast and Furious movies. They are bad.
The
Fast and Furious.
The worst mistake is going back to them after skipping them. Fast and Furious 1, 2, and then Tokyo Drift, which is not 3 chronologically.
Are so boring in comparison.
So it's like, oh, this is a cop crime movie. Number 2, it's a cop crime movie. Number 3, this is a cop crime movie.
Racing movie, I guess.
It's a racing movie. It's a little bit of a drama because it's not really about the crime or the cops. And then I jumped to 9. I've had the synopsis explain to me what's going on up to now. And minor spoilers, they literally go to space. And I made a joke like, hey, remind me to start watching again when they go to space because this is getting ridiculous. Because I've gotten like a third through the movie and someone looked at me and I was like, have you watched the trailer? And I was like, no. Then how did you know that? What do you mean? How did I know that they went to space? They go to space? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, so all in all, Suicide Squad, I think it's a great movie. Deion thinks it's a shit movie. You're allowed to think what you want to think about.
I thought it was really weird when Batman showed up, but okay.
I don't regret watching it. I just think it's a shit. No, I think you can have both opinions. I don't regret watching it.
I understand that Wonder Woman's all important now, but she seemed really ham-fisted in there.
It was completely unnecessary. It was kind of like, what's her name?
Wonder Woman?
The other Wonder Woman in Marvel.
Wonder.
Marvel's Wonder Woman.
Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel, yeah. They didn't need to have put her in half the scenes that she was in either, but it worked out. So.
All right, gentlemen, I'm joking. Is Wonder Woman actually in this movie? I've never seen it.
No, Wonder Woman is not actually.
Okay.
I was
really hoping that I could bluff my way through this, but it wasn't working.
Nah, you also get Calendar Man.
What
Kaleidoscope.
the fucking name is that?
Polka Dot Man shows up, which was actually kind of cool.
Polka Dot Man is one of the most powerful characters in the movie.
Actually.
This is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
And Matt genuinely can't tell which characters are real or not.
I cannot. You could be making this shit up, and I'm like, that makes sense, actually. That kind of...
Shark Boy's dad shows up. That's crazy.
Now, I heard of Shark Man or something, the Shark Boy, whatever the fuck it was.
So it's King Shark.
King Shark. Yeah.
Slash
So
Anawe.
I wouldn't blame Shark Boy, although I think that's a cartoon.
It's a children's movie that did get a
Shark Boy
new
versus
sequel.
Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a recent development in the Shark Boy Lava Girl series?
I hope not.
Yeah.
No, I'm not even joking.
I really hope not. I wasn't joking either.
So, Matt, just so you understand, Calendar Man is basically kind of like the Riddler, except he ages and de-ages dependent on the season of that he's in, and also he has an entire calendar tattooed around his head.
This is so dumb.
Polka Dot Man,
Like,
who is in the movie, that wasn't a joke. Polka Dot Man, his mother, who he hates, wanted her children to become superheroes, so she infected them with a space virus. And so what it does is interdimensional space virus. What
this
it does
is Stephen King now.
It gives him like a rash, but it's just like multicolored boils on his face that he has to expel twice a day, or else it will consume him. And then he has like these little wrist gauntlets, like Wonder Woman, that he holds them in. And then when he gets mad, he opens them and throws them at people, and they incinerate and disintegrate all matter.
Anything they touch.
Yeah,
gentlemen, in future episodes, we're gonna have a segment called "Is this a real DC?" And you just start explaining and talking about somebody, and I have to guess true or false.
Culture to Matt.
Here's the thing: you could explain something random, and someone would be like, "Actually, that's not that far from a character that was in this one issue of this one novelization in 1973." From that's
you would the beauty of it.
That's so funny. Yeah, you know that you got especially when you decide to make a sequel to a Will Smith movie, which never goes well.
Not a sequel.
I know. I know. I know. Listen,
a retcon.
Listen,
not a reboot. Not a retcon because they referenced the previous movies.
I watched Suicide Squad 1, and then shortly after, I watched Blight. If they make a sequel, no, I'm sorry, Bright.
You mean Bright?
Yeah. But listen, it felt like a blight on my spirit after I watched it. If they,
but it's got some great narrative takes on race relations in America.
So it doesn't not. But here's the thing.
But by making all of the orcs every other ethnicity that they don't feel like depicting
at once, yeah, right. And also pixies, which they were very racist towards for some reason.
We're pixies. We're pixies.
That sounds like a song.
So I don't want a sequel or a novelization or a show or a sequel or
any other continuation.
No, because what they should have done from the beginning was make it like a 10-part series on Netflix or something. Making it a movie, just they shoehorned every single trope that was relevant to action films in about an hour and 45 minutes. And it wasn't good. Not only was it somehow not predictable, it was exactly as predictable as you thought it was. Like, it was so. There was a resurrection sequence.
Yeah, Bright.
There was a Chosen One sequence. There was a mystery girl love sequence. There was a race relation sort of like development, and also none of it actually made all that much sense together because the main characters were cops, and so none of it actually works. I don't know.
This is another movie I didn't watch. I know it's extremely dumb.
Because apparently some director didn't understand that you could just have the black cop be the point of focus for the race relations. They decided to make the black cop the problem in the conversation about the race relations and just made the orc the one that's being focused on in the race relations discussion.
They made so just like they did the Irish, they made blacks white and they made orcs black, and it was very confusing the whole film. They were very racist towards orcs.
Like, why didn't you just do what normal people do and use the elves as a reference to
supremacy?
Yeah, supremacy, because they almost always are.
Yeah. That's not even their fault.
And use
they're always the perfect
as
beings.
a reference to degeneracy, while removing maybe a lot of the references to like, or I shouldn't say references, the nods to like tribal cultures and native cultures. Maybe remove those and just represent the orcs as what they tend to be, degeneracy, and go from there and let humans be the middle ground, which is what makes us bright, quote unquote.
Well,
there were a bunch of ways you could have rewritten that, and you didn't have to have the orcs being the Hispanic gang, and also the black cop, and also the what is it, the like ambassador for his entire race to the public view.
Oh, don't forget the Jesus allegory.
This is my problem when they try to do these things, and some of it is limited by because you have an hour and a half of movie time or whatever. But racism is not always so cut and dry. Prejudice is not always so cut and dry because there's different levels of it. Whenever someone says racist, you always imagine the KKK, which is not true. Racism goes along with something we said at the very beginning of the episode of, you talk so eloquently for someone of your kind. Like, you may mean it as an actual compliment, but it is racist because you're saying you are different from the rest of your kind.
Right, I didn't expect you to speak as well as the rest.
I'm not saying that your kind is scum and should be eradicated from the earth, but I'm saying that your kind, in my opinion, are beneath me and don't talk as eloquently as I do. And that is the connotation that you're spreading. And the problem is racism and prejudice of all kinds come in different flavors. Sometimes it's, I just don't want to interact with them. It's not that you want to kill them. It's not that you want them to shift off. It's just like, I just feel uncomfortable by them.
They don't deserve to be in your space, is your opinion.
Whoever they are.
Yeah.
And then it ramps up to, they need to get out of my space. I don't want them in my neighborhood. And then it ramps up to, I don't even want them in my state. And then it ramps up to, I don't even want them in my world. Eradicate them. Like, there's different levels of it, and there's nuances, and there's reasons for it. A lot of it's social. A lot of it's brought up and taught to you. But I mean, my issue with those movies is exactly that, is that you lump the entire race into this one caricature, which is racist. I've known plenty of black people, plenty of white people, Hispanics, gays, queers, all that sorts of thing. None of them act the same.
Identical. Right.
Oh man, it just bothers me.
And it's so I've been recently getting into Lord of the Rings, side tangent a little bit. Yeah,
I love Lord of the
Rings. I listened to all the books, and one of the things that I found a little weird was why Tolkien never explored the idea of an orc who didn't side with Sauron. And it's in reading the books that it is actually a little bit better explained that most of the orcs aren't necessarily siding with Sauron. Most of the orcs just see Sauron as the best way to get what they want, which is very different depending on each of the orc and the Uruk-hai. Some of them are all about just the murder, maim, and burn. Some of them are more like about the warfare. Some of them are more about the treasure. Some of them are just more about survival than anything. And you begin to recognize that, like, Tolkien understood that even in the forces of, like, quote unquote nondescript evil, there is variation to it. Like, it's not all one-sided. It's a very multifaceted discussion. When you, like, for example, the giant spider in the movies, you just kind of get the
Shelock, that's right.
She's the one, whose mother is Ungoliant, the weaver.
You lost me.
Ungoliant.
Stop it.
I think it's Ungoliant.
Please stop.
Anyway. So in the movies, it doesn't really explain why Shelob's there. In the standard movies, in the director's cut, they might actually have a reference to it, but they don't really explain like why she's there. In the books, it's explained that she's pretty fucking powerful herself.
It's a big spider, of course,
and it would take a lot of effort on Sauron's part to get her out of those mountains for him to kill her. He could do it, but it would take a lot of effort.
It might not quite be worth it.
Tolkien does a very good thing, and something that I try to emulate with my books, is that what's called the Planet of Hats is where, so like in Mass Effect and Star Trek, Star Wars, this species, this race, this whatever it is, the orcs in Bright or whatever, they are all this one thing. There's none of the orcs they never write poetry, they don't know language, they just kill and murder. Really? There's 4 billion of them, and not a single one ever wrote some poetry? And so Tolkien does a very good job of, he establishes a planet of Hat where, the elves are this supreme, they live forever, they're pretty, they're flawless, that kind of thing. But then you notice that they have flaws, that they do stupid things, that they are prideful at times, that they do wage war. And it shows that, yeah, this is the general rule for them. They have, like, the Americans are this way, but there's deviation.
But by no means it is consistent, right? By no means there's no consistency to it.
And it's something
it's just the general rule.
And when I wrote my books, I tried to emulate that, where I said this continent and these people are this way. But then as you go through the story, like, no, there's plenty of characters that deviate from that, and that's part of the whole main character's reasoning is like, oh, I was brought up wrong. I was brought up kind of racist because these people are not the way they are. I need to reevaluate my decisions. And it's also something that so I recently started reading An Unfortunate Events.
Oh, Series of Unfortunate Events.
Yeah, and it's great because he also does something similar where he talks about the differences of evil, differences of motivation, but he also focuses in on how, like, he layers it in comedy where Count Olaf is a bad actor and he does terrible things, but I mean, the kids can always figure him out because he's a bad actor. He's always clearly Count Olaf, but none of the adults believe them, and that's because it's very beautifully written in the way that it's true. Again, I was a teacher. People don't believe kids. People look down on them and they don't believe them, even when they're right. And so that's a common theme, is that these kids are smarter and they're better than everybody gives them credit for. But it's also, there's a lot of things that happened that no one ever resolves. People hold on to grudges because no one ever talks to each other, and by the time they do, it's too late. And I think it's very beautifully written to show the differences of evil and motivation and care and just empathy and sympathy for people.
I don't know how far you are in the series. Have you seen the ending of the YouTube of the
yeah,
Netflix
I've seen the show.
What show are we talking about?
You're familiar with how Olaf dies.
Yes.
And how he basically he basically admits that he was wrong and wishes he'd gone about it in a different way. Because he realizes that all of this, all it did was cause pain and destruction
and ultimately his own devastation as well, and to the people that he cared about as well. He lost everything.
And it breaks him, and he realizes all along, he has a Darth Vader moment. He realizes, like, I'm actually a monster. And you kids were right to defy me. And that's really hard to, I say, accurately do in a character, because it's very rare, I say, in this world for a person to suddenly discover that kind of clarity within themselves. It's hard enough to get a person who's on the brink of discovering their issues to step past that. It's an entirely different challenge to get a person who doesn't even see their issues, doesn't even acknowledge that they exist.
You have to explicitly want it, in my opinion. You have to want, you're the kind of person that wanted to get better from the beginning.
And it's in that, like, moment of death where it's the easiest for us to come by it, where, we experience our whole life flashing in front of our eyes or whatever. We realize, oh, Jesus, we fucked up. And they just do it so well with Count Olaf. And I believe it's pretty much exactly the same in the books. Nobody believes them when they say, hey, there's a problem. Nobody gives them the time of day, even Count Olaf. And that's exactly the problem Count Olaf existed with. Nobody thought he was a good actor. Nobody thought he was worth a damn. Even the kid's parents, like, eventually screwed him over. People he thought were his friends, he realized just were using
him or afraid of him.
And he is the children, and it's such a brilliant parallel of what the children could become if situations had been different. And the books do bring that
up at a certain point, because they cross paths where they bring light to Count Olaf, and they show how he became how he is and all this sorts of stuff. But they also show it towards the end where the kids start actually kind of going with Count Olaf And like, you know, people are like, what do you, and I think Violet or someone is saying like, what are you doing? And Colossus is just like, no one else is believing us. What choice do we have? I'm tired of this. I am so tired of this. And it's not getting any better. We might as well just do this thing by ourselves, and we might as well go with Count Olaf for now until we can figure out something out. What are we going to do? We might as well do a bad thing and hope for the best. Which is, and that's, and again, it shows how Count Olaf and people like him become like that. And again, I saw this when I was teaching, and I see it as a major problem with social media. And it's something that I've experienced recently where people, they don't communicate well. They don't look at themselves. They don't have introspection. And one of the big things, especially with a lot of topics, is you can be right and I can be right, but we can disagree with each other. And that is okay. You can like things and I can dislike them, and we can point out our opinions, and we can come to a reasonable conclusion and say, this is my point, this is your point. And you don't have to persuade somebody. It is not.
Yeah, I can like.
No. Hold on.
I can like John. Hold on. I can like John Cena, and Deion can go fuck himself.
This is what I was gonna. I was like, if you disagree with exactly what I'm saying, you're obviously more incorrect, and you need a lobotomy. Like, what's wrong with you right now?
Damn.
And then you just completely like over. Damn it, Nick. Damn it.
But I mean, we see that so much online of people just losing their minds of like, you know, I didn't think this game was, you know, that much fun. Like, this is the greatest game in the world. I will rip your testicles off. I'm like, what happened?
Oh man.
What happened?
Maybe it's just
Fallout,
somewhere in the middle, guys.
Mass Effect, Skyrim.
Mass Effect. Mass Effect was a big one.
Cyberpunk.
Oh man, that was a recent
Destiny.
one. Man, Cyberpunk.
Let somebody tell you. Let somebody say on the internet that Destiny was less than perfect. Like D&D kids are jocks, but nerd. You know, like how there's like Venn diagrams.
Right.
Wrestlers are
Fantasy football players are just D&D players, but with
exactly. There are Venn diagrams, and there's nerds are just a giant circle. And then around the circle are circles. It's a circle of circles.
Yes, it's a color wheel of nerdiness.
Yeah, exactly. It's a color wheel of nerdiness. And honestly, it's, everyone's a nerd. If you love football, you're a super nerd. All you care about is numbers. If you love baseball, you're even nerdier than that somehow. If you like playing here's something that my friend Ryan told me a few years back. Sport management games are just RPGs with less fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just RPGs.
There are stats
for jocks.
There are teams. Exactly. They're just RPGs for jocks. I don't care what you're into. If you're into something a little too much, you're a flipping nerd.
If the only way you're gonna play video games is using a VR headset while standing, guess what? You're a nerd for health games. Well, so here's the thing. I've got a question then. I thought it'd be fun to just give you guys a question that you can either answer really in depth, or you can just give it like a couple sentences to explain your answer. Each of these questions, they're not going to have any consistency, but I am going to try to make them as ones that you can answer without too much effort and give people a way to sort of get to know you. Because I think it'd be good to get to know us a little bit just through quick little snippets besides all of the nonsense that we talk about. So my question for you guys today, I have stolen from a YouTuber, Jax Films. I'm going to give credit to him. Jax Films got asked this question on one of his Jack Asks. And I thought this was actually a really interesting question. So I wanted to ask you.
By the way, that's a great pun. Jack Asks. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Jack.
Oh, that's I missed.
He literally starts it with the jackass beginning, the.
That's funny.
But he's like, "Hey, I'm drunk as fuck, and welcome to," and it just cuts to the word and does the. Yeah. Anyway, it's great. I love Jax Films. If you don't watch Jax Films, maybe go watch them. If you don't like them, that's fine. So the question he was asked that I'm posing to you is: if you had one telepathic thought that everyone in the world could hear, and you could only do it once, what would it be?
Ooh, that's actually a good one.
Do I have this in my pocket and I know that I do and I can just wait to do it?
Yeah, you just pick the phrase, but it only works once and everyone in the world will hear it.
All right. So I think for my thing, I would say everybody's struggling through something that you can't see and sometimes it's hard to understand, but be nice to each other, think the best of everybody, but also don't put up with things that you don't need to.
I'm thinking about it, and I don't know if I would, and I don't mean this as an attack, I don't know if I would waste it on a wholesome message.
Because I don't trust get money.
No, because I don't trust people to understand that it wasn't just some because just so you have intrusive thoughts and they're bad things, I think that bad people have intrusive thoughts and they're good things, and they just were like, oh, screw that. Like, you don't think that Jeff Bezos doesn't think like, man, I could cure homelessness. Nah, forget that nonsense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's an intrusive thought for him. I didn't mean it as an attack. I don't think you wasted it. I think that's indicative of your personality.
Your theoretical
you wanted to tell people
message.
a good thing to sort of unify them into being good together.
And I agree with you, and I understand that's basically it is going to basically be wasted, but I also think it's going to be wasted on anything else, because that kind of thing where it's just randomly broadcasted, people are not going to do. Change is hard, and we talked about this before. You have to want to change. Anything that we say is basically going to go over people's heads and be ignored unless it reaffirms what they want.
Let me to add this
How
caveat.
long is the thought allowed to be?
Let me to add this caveat, because I think this is what I think when I read the question. I think the telepathic thought is notably not their own. It is more than just like, oh, that's me thinking that. It is very much a voice inside their head that is not their own. That is what I imagine.
I feel like if you heard my voice in your head, you would be very clear that it is not you.
Right, that's my thing.
Okay,
it's like it's
so they feel like and recognize that they something else is speaking to them. Okay, okay, yes. All right, that changes things a little bit.
I mean, we're dealing with telepathy, so who knows?
All bets are off.
Doesn't work.
I just know that if you posted this to Reddit, there will be an entire thread section that just was the comment, and the reply to that comment is the same comment as HODL. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, never mind.
As a matter of fact, I don't.
HODL?
I can't explain it. We don't have time. We literally don't have time.
Okay, you'll have to explain it to me another time.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that for a long time. Okay. Am I allowed to filibuster? Can I read the whole Bible?
One sentence.
A is for Apple.
Sentence. One sentence.
I'm giving you one sentence since you really want to ask.
Matt, do you know where I'm going with this? I get one sentence.
Yes.
Tell them where I'm going with this.
One sentence that can't be more.
Because you and I have actually had this conversation before, or something similar to it. I know where you're going with this.
Because I don't remember the specific.
Can't be more than 15 words
Okay,
long.
now you're right. That's not fair. You said a sentence.
Yeah.
Look, man, you're overthinking this.
There are more than one set of books. One famously by a single author.
Where the whole book is one sentence.
One book is grammatically, technically one sentence. Yes. I'm being a dick. I'm sorry.
I believe that answered my question. You would be a dick.
I don't think I'd be a dick, but I'd have a lot of questions first.
You'd be like, I hesitate to use this. You might just keep it.
No, that's what I said.
Pocket.
Like, do you need
like
to know?
I do in like Pokemon.
Do you have a day?
Like, I have 76 elixirs by the end of the game, but I can't use them because I never know when I'm going to need them.
You can't craft them. There's only so many in the game.
Somehow Deion's is just fucked because he saved it until his deathbed.
Oh shit! Yeah. Yeah, I would save it for a long time until I was able to think of something profound that I truly felt was useful and beneficial.
Jesus Christ, answer the question.
I actually don't think I
live
will
with this
be able
man.
to do
this
it
was
tonight.
life all the time.
All right.
Okay. It's okay. And not answering the question is an acceptable answer. If that's your answer, like saying I wouldn't use it.
I think I would if I had like a near-death experience and some on high entity was like, what do you want to tell the people now that you survived? Because I really meant to kill you, and like something like justify the experience or whatever, right? And I knew, like, and I was like, "Can you give me a minute?" And I would make God wait to figure out what I wanted to say. Like, I don't know. So
I had a small issue with it too, because I was like, what would be the most impactful? And then I realized that words of encouragement would not be nearly as impactful as I would think.
They're not going to be.
Because
they have to be specific.
Inspire just as much badness as it could.
Yeah,
goodness.
Exactly.
So I actually opted for a relatively negative statement, which was, "You are all completely meaningless."
Oh.
Because I believe that it would inspire just as much negativity as it would positivity. And the negativity it would inspire would most likely be internalized. Now, of course, there are those individuals who would probably hear it and just absolutely lose their mind and be like, let's purge, baby!
It's super... Oh, we can do a movie night, and then we could do a... What do you call it? A podcast. A recording. Yeah.
Can I at least watch this one? Can I involve myself in the conversation?
My answer is I don't know.
Thanks everybody for listening. We started with bad bosses, and we ended up with the fact that jocks are sport nerds. And we, just like you guys, have no idea how we got there either. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next Thursday. If you want to support us, we have a Patreon page. Rhuminus, will stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I upload to YouTube, and I've also published 2 books. You can support us that way as well. All of this has been linked in our About page.
Have you seen...
One of the things... Yeah, go. No, you go.
No, you go. We're both Canadians. We'll both go. No, you'll go.
No, you go. Have you guys seen that episode of Portlandia?
I can't watch Portlandia.
That's okay. I'll send you the you go bit. It's quite funny. Each of these questions, they're not going to have any consistency, but I am going to try to make them as ones that you can answer without too much effort and give people a way to sort of get to know you. Because I think it'd be good to get to know us a little bit just through quick little snippets besides all of the...
I love peanut butter.
Same.
So today's question...
Gentlemen, are we not going to talk about peanut butter and how much I love it?
We're not going to talk
I would have sex with peanut butter if I could.
Okay.
Boy, this is what I have.
Good news is I'm in control of the editing, so that's staying in.
I thought you were going to say that's going out. 100% going out, but nope, it's the opposite.